We're looking now at part of the memorial for lives lost in Sydney, Australia. We have new information about the 16-hour standoff in a local cafe that left 2 hostages and a depraved gunman dead. Did the hostages who were killed save others? And could more have been done to stop this before it happened? Joining us now is Councillor Christine Forrester. She's on the City Council of Sydney. She's also the sister of Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott. Ms. Forrester, it's very good to have you with us. Our condolences to you and the community there.
Yeah, it's been a terrible 36 hours, Chris, and the people of Sydney, I think, are still very much coming to terms with this. I've just been down to have a look at the memorial site in Martin Place, and there are still hundreds of people milling around there, tens of people queuing up to lay flowers at the memorial site, and people, I think, of this city are still in shock.
Well, it is a situation that is going to demand a lot of soul searching about why it happened and how it happened and what it means going forward. So let's see what we can learn about these different aspects. In terms of how this happened, let's start with those who lost their lives first. What do you know about the actions of hostages inside that may have helped others but cost their own lives?
Well, look, Chris, I don't know anything more than the general public does at this stage. It's still very early days. What we all know here in Sydney and in Australia is that the New South Wales Police and the Federal Police and the authorities did an absolutely fantastic job dealing with what was a dreadful situation. It's still very early days in finding out actually what went on inside the cafe, and there will be a very full and thorough investigation of what actually did happen. But perhaps, like you guys are hearing at the other side of the world, I've also heard stories of heroism. I don't think that what has gone on in the cafe has been confirmed yet, but I've heard that the cafe manager, Tori Johnson, tackled the terrorist and in the process of that lost his life. I don't know whether that is actually the case, but that is certainly something that I've heard. But as I said, there will be a very thorough investigation which may take weeks and months, but we hopefully will know eventually at the end of that process actually what did go on. And there's no doubt about it that every single one of the people that were held hostage in that place just a few metres from where I am today, right in the heart of this beautiful city, every single one of them are heroes, and Australia absolutely, every Australian, I think, is feeling their pain and their grief, and our hearts absolutely go out to them for what they've been through, and to the families of the innocent victims of this horrible event. I think every Australian is just feeling their pain now, and just wish this had never happened.
The world gets very small in these situations because everybody fears the same thing, and the question becomes why. This man was somewhat familiar to local authorities, not necessarily as a potential terrorist, but as someone with extreme views. What do you know now about what was considered the risk of this individual before this?
Well, I mean, we know now that this man was out on bail, that he had been charged with serious criminal offences, that he was mentally unstable, it seems, and I think I feel like many other people share my sense of outrage that this man was walking the streets and was able to perpetrate this horrible crime on innocent victims. And there are questions being asked, and our leaders, our Premier Mike Baird has said that there will be a review. As I understand, there will be a review of bail conditions to find out how this has occurred, and everything about this horrible incident has to come under the microscope, and it will, in a very thorough and very urgent way, because what we in Australia, we in Sydney, don't want ever happening again is another incident like this.
But it's very difficult to stop, isn't it? This lone wolf phenomenon, mental health instability, these all create a randomness that demands that our leaders start looking at these situations differently. That means, in your situation, all the way up to your brother, who's the Prime Minister. Now, he said Tragically, there are people in our community ready to engage in politically motivated violence. The events in Martin Place show that we're ready to deal with these people professionally and with the full force of law. But unfortunately, this happened after the fact, dealing with it. What do you need to change there to maybe make something like this less likely going forward? Should men like this be on a watch list?
Well, I think obviously they should be, and I think that from what I know, the federal government is doing is taking every step, every precaution it can to ensure that people that pose a threat are being watched, are being held in check, are being dealt with the full force of the law. They are doing that. The Prime Minister has given his assurance to the Australian people that he will do everything he can to keep us safe. I suppose what has transpired over the last couple of days, in as much as it's been a dreadful eye-opener for the people of Australia and certainly the people of Sydney, I guess it will make us all more vigilant and more aware that possibly these terrible things can happen. I think, Australians and Sydneysiders have perhaps up until now had a certain innocence that this couldn't happen here. And that's why I think we're still largely in shock, trying to come to terms with this. But I do know that it will make us as Sydneysiders more aware that we have to be vigilant, we have to be on the lookout, and we know now that something dreadful like this can happen in our beautiful city, our beautiful, free, multicultural, welcoming city where nothing like this has ever happened before. Now it has. So people will go about their business, go back to their ordinary lives, but they'll be on the lookout, I'm sure, and 4.5 million sets of eyes looking around our city to make sure that this doesn't happen again will be very helpful.